Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome, and I'm so glad that you're joining me. We're going to talk about how these symptoms aren't exactly what we think they are, right? Let's first just sort of take a deep breath. And this week, well, the sun has shifted back into a quieter rhythm. It's really nice. It's been that we've shifted from it intense M classes into sort of a tap, tap, tap of C class flares, reminding us to stay awake and to stay present, right? To stay awake and to stay present, sort of like there's things going on out here, and we want to be very present with what they are, right? So those M classes really took us for a loop, and they was because of a coronal hole. And what we're noticing is that another coronal hole is coming around for the middle of this week, starting probably Tuesday, Wednesday. So just know that this is a steady rhythm of flares that are asking us to listen, to pay attention, to sort of listen to our inner voice, right? Mr. What is he? MBB333 on YouTube. He has sort of one of those 70s voices where it's like, so this is what we're going to. I love his information. And he says that based on the Schumann resonance, that the Earth's resonance has been ringing nonstop for 10 hours straight. It happened on the 23rd, and it was like the ringing just wouldn't um, cease. And so the question that I would say is the ringing saying, can you hear me beneath all of the noise, right? This tone, this vibration is a reminder that's awakening us, not always as an explosion, but sometimes just as that persistence of light. So it's like tap, tap, tap. This light isn't going away. These plasma waves aren't going away. These astrological zingers aren't going away. So let's shift over to, when I mean astrological zingers, let's talk about Neptune went retrograde on the 23rd back into Pisces. It was in Pisces April 2011 through March of this year, went into Aries, and now it's back at that 29 degrees anoretic, where we are doing deep emotional dissolving processes with water. So as Neptune returns back to its home place of Pisces, it is also joined by Saturn, who is there in retrograde as well. And so what they're doing is they're anchoring sort of structure, water. And that makes a lot of sense to me. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, I love to repost Vita Fidel stuff. And so what she said today was, or this about this Neptune, right, in Pisces, is that there are thresholds that cannot be crossed by will, only by surrender so total that identity forgets how to hold its shape. And I thought, oh, so total that we forget how to hold the shape that we have tried our entire lifetime to hold. It's time to let that go. So this is sort of like a final baptism. It's like a drop of water returning to the ocean, or the ocean returning to itself. So Neptune is asking us to stop strategizing, stop searching for the shore, and just float. And Saturn's whispering below all of that, what structure must dissolve before the new world can form? Just nothing very heavy at all. But this isn't destruction. This is a returning to essence, kind of like the way the salt returns to the ocean, the way it always has been. So when we think of water and sediment and all of that, we can look at our conditioning, our programming, our imprinting as the sediment that's in our bodies and in our collective waters. So layer upon layer upon layer of survival training, fear of rejection, people pleasing, obedience to authority have been conditioned to us so deeply over our lifetimes, our parents' lifetimes, our grandparents' lifetimes, that this is lineage work, it is human collective work, and it is, of course, at the center of all of it, our own individual work. It makes sense. So each solar flare, each plasma surge stirs up that sediment. Of course it does. So we can finally see what's being buried. And so, it's Scorpio. So here is Scorpio, and this is what death looks like in Osho. It's sort of like, there's parts of us that we have to identify, and then we are reborn through this Phoenix energy. That makes sense. If you look at, and many of you who know me have seen this or watch my videos have seen this Scorpio constantly. It's where you go to the depth of the ocean and you cut loose that sediment and you release it so that it comes up. And the way that Lightseers shows this is that this is what that process can actually be like. It's like there's this new version of you coming to the surface. It's beautiful because what we want to do is we want to see what's been buried. We want to see what we've been locked into. So Pam Gregory says that we can't drag all of this old stuff, all this old baggage with us. The dissolution, right, is necessary. It's how we move into the higher dimensions. So when you're feeling fatigue, when you're feeling sore spots, when you're feeling brain fog, when you're having pressure on your head, when your digestion and everything, and all of these symptoms that we have learned to track through the solar flares um, are coming up. They're not breaking you down. They're stirring up the sediment so it can be refined. So we're being purified, not punished. It's such an interesting way to look at it. And when I bring the sediment up, when I look at programming and conditioning, I found this super interesting piece that a dear friend of mine in Australia sent me by Te Rakura Taruki called the Malware of control. And so what she spoke of, and she's out on the Hawaiian Islands, and she has this beautiful spiritual practice. And she said that there are still programs running sort of all over our human collective, right? All over our bodies, within our minds, of the psychic malware of control. And I thought, oh, she calls it the matrix sentinels, parasites of chaos that feed on fear and jealousy and despair. And I thought, oh wow, this really hits to that dark, scary part that we really would never want to talk about. But they're not monsters, they're loops within our old programming. And they bore through the light ship when we forget that we are light. So in other words, they can keep us dark. They can keep us buried when we forget that we are light. So every time that we rise and we breathe and we forgive, right? Oh, and we re-script the moment, we reclaim our sovereignty. So awareness is the ultimate antivirus for this malware, right? Neutrality is the firewall. Play is the escape. And peace is the code that cannot be hacked. So when we look at that malware, I was looking, found a random piece on Instagram from a show that was one series, 2020, in 2020, called Detachment. And God, I can't remember the name of the actor. He was phenomenal. He's a teacher, and he writes assimilate up on the board. And the students are like, it's to take something in to absorb it, right? And then he writes ubiquitous, and it's everywhere all the time. And so he said, what happens when there's ubiquitous assimilation, which is always absorbing things everywhere all the time? So his point was, how can you imagine anything if the images are always provided for you, if the structure is always provided, if you are inundated constantly with tones through hertz and vibration and sound, visuals, colors, programmings that are in words, that are in scenes, that manage your emotions. And so what that brings up to me is the question that we really want to focus on, which is conditioning feeds us made up stories. It tells us how to think. Education teaches us made up stories, how to think. Religion teaches us made up stories, how to think. Our family systems demonstrate ways to think and what to fear and what to desire. So imagination is our act of rebellion. It's reawakening us to our direct line with source. So, these little pieces. And then, of course, Glenn Beck comes back from about 2 or 3 weeks ago when he said, well, you must learn to read and observe with spiritual eyes. to develop the muscle that sees beyond appearance. And it's like, ah, then we go to claircognizance, which is the ability to recognize codes when they arrive. That muscle, right? That system through our intuition, through synchronicity, through knowing before words, is remembering our reality all over again. And that's part of that sentiment, right? That's being stirred up, that brings us body pain, that brings us exhaustion, that interferes with our sleep. So it really isn't a symptom as much as it's stirring something really deep within us. So if we go to Zachary Fisher, he talks about the compression before release. And I mentioned this last week that there's a deep pressure moving through the collective, right? A massive compression of unresolved emotions and truth. The buildup before the fall is cellular release. So that heaviness in the chest, right? That ache behind the eyes is fatigue, but it's not failure. It's expansion under pressure. So when the body feels tight, right? And then the field is widening. When the emotion rises, then the programming is unwinding, unraveling. So what feels like breakdown is bandwidth expansion. It's amazing, right? Okay. So one last piece before I go on to tips, which is to reframe this as sacred freedom. So you're not losing your identity, you're shedding the armor around it. I guess I would have to say that this Queen of Cups is my perfect example, is that there's no armor on her. She's just actively vibrating her own resonance out, right? So every sleepless night, every strange symptom that, every sudden insight that you get is an awareness that your system is releasing the illusion of control. So this is a deep cleansing. This is where we're going towards, right? That we're not being asked to survive anymore. We're being asked to create in such a phenomenal way. And Fida Fidel, go back to her, that some selves of us must die, so Signal can remember that it is sovereign. You're not collapsing, you're going back to your original frequency. So this is what's happening. We're going back to the 22 species that are inside of us, that are within our DNA strand. We're finding that finally. We're working with that. So I have 6 tips for you. And before I go into those, I just want to invite you to come over to Patreon, because we're mapping these out and we're building our claircognizance skills together as a team. And we're sharing insights in building our own support systems for how sometimes it's very lonely to be out here seeing all of this, especially with our emerging intuitive clairs and everything that's working, right? So come over to Patreon. You can either just read everything that we're posting, or you can actually do a paid membership for $11 a month and join the discussion group. We would love to have you. The link is down below in the description. Okay, so tips for navigating all of this dissolving. These tips are actually kind of fun. I'm having a good time creating these tips for you. So slow down and breathe with the field. So our field is that 3 feet on either side of us, 6 feet, diameter, us in the center at the very minimum, right? We could also be enormous, right? Your breath is your interface with the cosmos. Each inhale draws in a new light code, a new light data, right? And each exhale removes the outdated code. So it's almost like when we breathe in something new. When we breathe out, we take that sentiment with us. So as when the pressure builds, drop from the head into the lungs. Let your ribs open up and let the rhythm of the planet sort of start to move you. That's coherence. So number 1, slow down and breathe with the field. Number 2, hydrate and ground. It's always going to be about hydrating, because water is the conductor of light. So as your frequency rises, your cells burn through hydration faster, because they have to sort of wash the sediment. It's like when you watch someone who's got that pan of water, or pan of dirt in there, and they're in the river and they're looking for gold pieces. They just keep adding more and more water so the light sediment can just move through it. So that's what we're doing when we drink water, is that we drink with awareness and we sip with integration. And so the second thing is that we touch the earth daily, I walk around barefoot in my house. I sit outside and have my tea in the morning, bundled under blankets, right? As it gets colder. Go out and lean on a tree, sit on a stone. Grounding isn't just anchoring down, it's how you plug back into the planetary grid, right? So number 3 is to witness, not wrestle. I love this one. When emotions surface, let it. Observe that whether it's, passing, like weather passing in the sky, right? Like right now, it's been pouring all night. Now the sun's coming out. Oh, there's something interesting. The moment you stop fighting it, you alchemize it. The moment you stop fighting, you alchemize it. So presence it is the solvent that dissolves old programming. Number 4, reclaim imagination as a sacred organ, as a sacredness within you. So imagination is not an escape, it's creation. Visualize your field like this luminous whole field, right? Feel the light codes weaving into your body. Act as if imagination strengthens your clear pathways, especially your claircodence, your ability to translate energy into meaning. So when we use our imagination and you're like, I just saw this, I just felt this, what we do is we expand it and we twinkle it through our light, or twinkle that light through our body, and we wake our cells up with what we're seeing and feeling. Number 5, detach from the noise, not from life. Silence is not withdrawal, it's maintenance. Make sure you know that. Silence is not withdrawal, it's maintenance. So you want to curate what enters your field. So whether that's fewer screens, more nature, more art, more laughter. When you clear the static, your sovereign frequency begins to ring louder and louder and louder. So when you clear the space, this is what you can look like. It's beautiful. And the pieces start falling into place. Number 6, practice compassion. Man, it's always about compassion because it's the universal stabilizer. Compassion keeps your light subtle and strong. When distortion arises in you and around you, you could choose this gentleness. Compassion doesn't excuse, it just transmutes. It reminds us that it reminds us that every cell is love, and that love is the default vibration of creation. It's really interesting. Okay, so let's bring this to a close. These are waves of plasma in water throughout our life this week, and all of this water is through the rest of the year. So we're looking at the end of October, November, all of December. We're in this deep Neptune Saturnian water, right? So it won't hold your shape, but it will remind you of who you truly are. You're not being undone, you're being unbound. It's beautiful. So I have a journal prompt for you that I'm going to tell you here, and then go ahead and write it. And I think I have a second one I'll put on there too in the description. So where in my life am I still running an inherited code? What happens when I let it dissolve into the ocean that already knows how to hold me? So take some time and write that. Play with it all week, and I will see you either Tuesday or next week. Take care. Bye-bye.